Today we're going to focus on the war with Mexico. Cute little war, 1846 to 1848. And here we go. So it's going to start with this guy. This guy is John Slidell, and John Slidell will go to Mexico City and talk to the Mexican authorities about the U.S. buying some Mexican territory. And so to do that, we need to work with the Mexicans. So to achieve manifest destiny, to overtake the whole continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific, the thing that is standing in the way right now is Mexico is claiming that whole southwestern chunk of the U.S., California, parts of Arizona and New Mexico and Utah and Colorado and what's now Texas. So we're going to negotiate with the Mexicans to get that. So this is what the map looks like in 1845. This is obviously the United States and regular states. All the green is the United States, but they're not yet states. It is just territory. And, we have Americans living out there. They have, governors for that territory. They follow U.S. law. They're like, little Puerto Ricos out here, right? Territories. But this is not part of the United States. Now, we will annex Texas in 1845. Thank you. And it was never quite clear between the United States and Mexico exactly where the border was. When the United States annexed Texas, the law that gave us, the U.S. wrote the law and said we're annexing Texas. We said the border was the Rio Grande River, which is right here. And all along, the Mexican authorities are saying that the southern Texas border, the border between Texas and Mexico, is the Nueces River, which is right here. So that's why this little chunk is blue. Both us and Mexico recognize that this is Texas and the U.S. annexed Texas. But the red part, that's disputed. Because Mexico says this is the border, but we, the United States, says this is the border. The Nueces River versus the Rio Grande River. So, that's part of this negotiation, is we're going to establish the border of Texas here. We're going to try to get these two territories as well, New Mexico and California. So this is what we are doing. This is what he's asking. The Mexicans to recognize the Rio Grande River as the true border. We will pay $5 million for New Mexico. And New Mexico, at the time, was just this little bit right here. Okay, so not a whole lot of territory there. And for California, name your price. 45 million? 60 million? How much you want? Name your price for California. Mexico refuses all offers. No to all the above. Slidell tried to negotiate after he threw everything on the table and Mexico said no. He went back, well, how about just this part? How about just this part? And no was the answer all along. So, Slidell comes back and he reports to Congress and reports to the president that, the Mexicans are not playing ball and I don't know what we're going to do about this. Well, the president knew what they were going to do about this. So, the Mexicans call this war the U.S. invasion because of the way it played out. President Polk is president at the time. Remember, Polk is here with the awesome mullet. And he is all about westward expansion. Remember his campaign slogan whenever he's running? Yeah, 50-for-40 or fight. And then he was able to negotiate and get the Oregon Territory, and it was great. So he's already achieved that part of Manifest Destiny. We got that northwest part, and now he's looking to complete it with the southwest part. So there is, of course, this issue with the Texas border. Which river? Texas and the U.S., we claim it's the Rio Grande. Mexico says it's Nueces. And this is the act of invasion. President Polk sends General Zachary Taylor, and all these generals, they had nicknames back then. Zachary Taylor's nickname was Old Rough and Ready because he's a little rough and he was always ready for a fight. And so Zachary Taylor and a group of soldiers are heading down to the Texan border to protect it from Mexico. And of course, the border that he goes to is the Rio Grande. So as far as the Mexicans are concerned, the United States has just invaded Mexico because the Rio Grande River is about 300 miles south of the Nueces River. And remember, the Mexican states, the border is the Nueces River. Now, Polk and Congress and everybody that knew what was going on knew this was probably going to start a war. But that's okay, that's what we want, right? The Mexicans would not negotiate, so now we're going to kind of pick a fight, start a war. And this is kind of the excuse of starting the war. We are protecting the U.S. border. But we know as far as Mexico is concerned, they're going to see this as an invasion and do something about it, and a war will start. This is President Polk. And good old Rough and Ready right there. All right. So how this plays out. So there initially was some disputed reports saying that Mexican troops will cross the Rio Grande River to attack the U.S. troops. And once that happens, Polk said the Mexicans have fired on the U.S. Army. We have to declare war and defend the United States. And if the Mexican troops did cross the Rio Grande River, then we see that as an invasion of U.S. territory, right? So we can blame the Mexicans for starting this war. Now, there is opposition. The Whigs are going to oppose this war because the Whigs, they like the idea of manifest destiny. Every American likes the idea of manifest destiny, but the Whigs do not want to go to war, and they're kind of worried about whenever we start expanding, then that will bring in more southern territory, which would mean probably more slave states, and they don't want that. Abraham Lincoln, who is in the U.S. House of Representatives, he is asking for clarification, which he called spot resolutions. Well, where did this fighting actually happen? On what side of the river were the different armies on? Are they shooting across the river? Did anybody cross the river? And that really was a stall tactic, kind of to prevent or maybe postpone this war. It doesn't work. The United States thought that this would be a quick, easy, cute little war. It wasn't as quick and easy as we hoped, because We're talking a really big territory. We are attacking Mexico along the Texas border. You have Mexican forts and troops out in California. And then, of course, you have Mexico proper as well. So we're talking about a lot of territory that we think we have to cover in a war. And that takes a while, way back in the 1800s, when you can't just drop troops in anywhere. A couple of other guys that we need to mention because they are important in this war is the guy out in California. The U.S. Army guy out in California is John Fremont. He is going to lead the Army expedition into California. And he will actually declare California an independent republic from Mexico. Like, just kind of on its own. And, but, you know, once the war is over, that all is going to be resolved. Winfield Scott, he is going to be sent into Mexico proper. Old Fuss and, his nickname is Old Fuss and Feathers. And they called him Old Fuss and Feathers because he was one of those generals who really liked all the stuff, you know, like all the medals and the ribbons and the little fringe coming off the shoulder and the feathers and the hats and all of that stuff. So he was just really fussy. He liked to, you know, hey, I'm the man in charge, look at me. That was him. And he is going to be sent into Mexico proper. Zachary Taylor's up in Texas. So we fight all over the place. There's fighting, of course, in Texas, but also in New Mexico, in California, Mexico City, which is like very interior Mexico. So this is, we are very strung out in this war, all over the place. So this is John Fremont. This is the flag for the Republic of California, which looks a lot like the California flag nowadays, right? It just doesn't, the bear is cute. And there's Old Fuss and Feathers there. Winfield Scott. Alright, so you can see everything that's going on here. The Nueces River, the Rio Grande River. And Zachary Taylor, whenever he actually complied, and he will send maps back to Congress to say, this is the spot where I was at, and this is the spot where the Mexicans were shooting at us. He says his spot was just north of the Rio Grande River. After Congress declares war, he will cross into Mexico. We also have groups leaving from New Orleans to attack here. We also are attacking here. We're sending troops out here. I mean, we're all over the place. The blue starburst are American victories. Red starburst are Mexican victories. Do you see any red starbursts?
San Diego.
Yeah, just one, right? That was it. It was lopsided, the battles were, but it took a while to get all of the places where we needed to achieve victory to force the Mexicans into giving us what we wanted. So that just took a little longer because it's all over the place, as you can see. And it takes a while to move troops back in the day. We do have a bombardment of Veracruz, right down here. We land Marines in Veracruz, and then we march into Mexico City, and that group is led by Winfield Scott. And that was, this bombardment and this siege of Veracruz will last several weeks. And our naval ships are out here just bombing the smithereens out of their fortifications until it was safe for our troops to land. And by the time we are marching into Mexico City. The Mexicans are ready to surrender. And really, it's kind of an absolute surrender. There was actually talk of taking over all of Mexico. But that did not have enough support in Congress, and Polk wasn't even that keen on it either. But that is how kind of absolute this victory was. So what we get at the end of the war, after about 2 years of fighting, we get the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This is the American we sent to negotiate it. Trist is his name. And that's his signature. But the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the big thing about it, it ends the war with Mexico. And Mexico was in really no position to negotiate. They kind of accepted the terms. So Mexico, this is the terms of it right here. They give up their claims to Texas north of the Rio Grande River. So we get the border with Texas that we want. The border of Texas to Mexico, the Rio Grande River, that's what we wanted, that's what it still is today. Mexico will give the U.S., California, and the New Mexican territory. This chunk of land becomes known as the Mexican Cession. And we will pay Mexico for damages and for land acquired, and we will pay Mexico $15 million. And that's because we want to have a friend on the border, right? We don't want terrible, hard feelings. And that softens the blow a little bit. So the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, 1848, border of Texas, we get the Mexican Cession, and we pay Mexico $15 million. So the Mexican Cession is all the pink. And there we have it. So this is immediately causing problems in Washington, D.C. because there's already enough people in California for them to apply to be a state. You only have to have 50,000 people to be a state. And the people in that territory have to vote. Do they want to become a state? Yes. And then the governor of that territory applies for statehood with the U.S. Congress. California is doing that immediately. And so now the whole thing about, well, is that going to be open to slavery? Or will it be a free state? And so problems are coming up immediately. So, and with new territory, we know that we're going to see more people move out that way, which we'll see more territories wanting to become states, and then the problem will keep on persisting. So, the big problem is, will these be free states or will they be slave states? But, remember we have the Missouri Compromise, right? Mm-hmm. The 3630 line. But in the Missouri Compromise law, it specifically mentions that Louisiana purchased territory. So should we make another law that just extends the line out? If we do that, it would cut California. So do we put it in 2 states? So there's a lot of problems coming up. And Congress is talking all of this out. Let's just extend the line. Well, then California would have to agree to be divided. Okay, well how about this? The Wilmot Proviso. The Wilmot Proviso was a proposed solution. It was a proposed law that would just say, okay, let's just pass a law saying no slavery allowed in the places we got from Mexico in the war. Obviously, the South thinks that's a terrible idea. And the Southern congressmen and the Southern people see this as an attempt to kill slavery across the country. They're feeling threatened by that. So the Wilmot Proviso was never passed, but it was a signal that people in Congress, the northern politicians, are looking to kill slavery. And that is very, very worrisome for Southerners. So, if we extend that 3630 line, this is what it would look like. Obviously, that's not going to work. It actually would cut off part of Texas too. So there was a lot of issues. So now we have to figure out what's going to happen. Of course, the gold rush will complicate things because the gold rush will send more people out to California. Gold is discovered that same year the treaty is signed. The war is over, 1848. Takes a little while for news to get back and for people to pack their bags and leave. So that's why we call the people that go to California 49ers, because you see that mass immigration happening in 1849. But gold was actually discovered in 1848. So the 49ers, you got tons of folks coming overland, but you also have a lot of folks coming by ocean. Usually folks show up in San Francisco first and then head out to the gold fields in the Sierra Nevada, what are they called? Sierra Nevada mountains? Yeah, because that's where the gold fields are, up in the mountains. Sacramento became a very large city as well, and like the supply station for all of these 49ers. And of course, Sacramento is the capital of California because it became its largest city early on. All right, digging for gold. A lot of people became rich, but a lot of people found nothing too. Okay, you don't need to necessarily list this, but kind of the outcome of the Mexican War, we've talked about this. What are we going to do? This brings up slavery one more time. We're got a whole lot of new land, but is that going to be open to slavery or not? And are we going to try to keep this balance equal? The same number of slave states versus same number of free states. How is all this going to work? Compromise is the answer. And who do you suppose comes up with compromise?
Henry
Clay. Golly, let's go. This is his last of his compromises. He will kick the bucket right before the start of the Civil War. But he does come up with a few more compromises that are going to work for us. First, the Compromise of 1850. Compromise of 1850. And this, as well as the Missouri Compromise, are two you really ought to commit to memory between now and May 10th, the test date. After that, you can flush them out of your brains. But these are always good little pieces of evidence to just pull out of your back pocket if there's ever a question about slavery or anything like that. Because these are your two big compromises about slavery. And they're both Henry Clay. 1850, California will be a free state. Free state, free state, free state. So the North gets what they want on that, right? Abolitionists get what they want on that. Slave people or slave owning people, they're going to get a couple of things too. But also the abolitionists do get this. And folks have been talking about this for a while. Washington, D.C. is our nation's capital. And supposedly we are a nation built on freedom, right? All men are created equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident. But yet, every Saturday morning in Washington, D.C., just outside of the Capitol building, there were slave auctions. And that was really a bad look, right? No, really, no matter how you felt about slavery, it was kind of a bad look. And the politicians did not like this. So you're gonna outlaw the slave trade. That means the buying and selling of in Washington, D.C. It's still legal to own slaves in Washington, D.C. Okay? It's still legal, Virginia's a slave state, Maryland's a slave state, Washington, D.C. is stuck in the middle. It is slave district, territory, whatever you want to call it. It's legal to have slaves there, but you cannot buy or sell. What the South got was the Fugitive Slave Law, and we've talked about the Fugitive Slave Law a little bit already. The Fugitive Slave Law was what inspired Harriet Beecher Stowe to write Uncle Tom's Cabin. The Fugitive Slave Law made every person in a free state responsible for turning in suspected runaways. If you did not report a suspected runaway to the authorities, you could be arrested because you were harboring a fugitive. And it also made it very easy for, they were called slave catchers, people that would hunt down runaways and return them to their owners for money, for bounty. These slave catchers, literally started kidnapping people up north and selling them into slavery in the South. There was a movie that came out a long time ago, so you've probably never seen it, but you might have heard of it, and it was a book first. It's called 12 Years a Slave. And in 12 Years a Slave, you had a free black man living in, I think, Boston. It was one of the big cities in the north. And his parents were free. His people had been free for generations. And he was a concert violinist, maybe? He was a musician. And after a concert one night, he literally got knocked over the head and thrown into a train car, and they shipped him down south and they sold him into slavery. And he lived as a slave for 12 years. Yeah. Did y'all watch that?
I think so.
We read the book, and I think we also watched the movie.
Okay.
Is Denzel Washington the person who plays that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't
We
know.
did
I don't
watch it.
remember who it
I just thought it
was.
was Denzel Washington.
But yeah. That movie was Glory, where he plays the runaway slaves and fought in the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
That could be it. But yeah, this became a danger to free black people living in the North, because it was not unusual for free black people to be intimidated, threatened about being really kidnapped and then sold into slavery. And it gave these slave catchers a lot of kind of free reign up north. The other compromise was the Kansas-Nebraska Act. The Kansas-Nebraska Act is based on the idea of popular sovereignty, which I believe was one of your vocab words this week. Popular sovereignty, popular means people, and sovereignty means rules or reigns, right? So the people rule, and in this case it means the people get to vote. The people that live there will vote. They will decide. So voters in those territories, as in Kansas and Nebraska, will decide whether they want to be a free or slave state. And on the face of this, that sounds like a decent idea, except that it's slavery and nothing's decent about slavery, right? But if, here in the United States, we like the idea of the people voting and the people making decisions. So it was popular on both sides, North and South. But in reality, It was a mess. It was an absolute nightmare. What the outcome becomes bleeding Kansas, which is basically either side killing the other so they're unable to vote. There was a little mini war in Kansas before the Civil War starts, and that little mini war in Kansas is over the vote over slavery. And then, of course, we have a real war over slavery after that. All right, and we'll talk more about bleeding Kansas next week. But these are the two compromises that will take care of the slavery issue in the West for now. The last little bit of territory that's left is this little bit right there, and it is the Gadsden's Purchase, 1853. We bought this from Mexico, and we paid $10 million. And we really, really wanted it because the surveyors and the engineers told Congress, well, if you really want to build a Southern Transcontinental Railroad, the best place to build it is through here. Evidently, there's some mountains here that they wanted to just kind of scoot south of. But to build a Southern Transcontinental Railroad, we buy this territory from Mexico. And of course, that Southern Transcontinental Railroad don't get built for a long time because, you know, the U.S. government's a little bit mad at the South because of the Civil War. And the railroad wasn't built before the Civil War, then it's not going to be built a long time after the Civil War either because there's still some hard feelings. Alright, another piece of romantic art, and this kind of shows the enthusiasm of people heading out west. To connect the people out west to the rest of the country, the mail service instituted what became known as the Pony Express. It is really short-lived, as you can tell by the dates here. And the first reason this is because, well, you know, there's a civil war that's going to start. And the government will spend money other ways instead of running mail out. Plus, the Transcontinental Railroad will replace it, and also just the telegraph wire where you can just send messages. You don't have to literally deliver something on paper anymore. You can send it over a wire by pressing a button. But the Pony Express became kind of a legend out west, and even though it was short-lived, it became very popularized. I like how they recruit people. Young, skinny, wiry fellows.
Does that say not over 18?
Not over 18.
Willing to risk death daily.
Oh, orphans preferred.
Orphans preferred.
Oh.
Hey.
$25 a week's pretty good.
Why is it so low?
What's that?
Now it's not good.
Why is it so low?
I don't even get
They're
$1
just
per
being
week,
upfront.
so I am broke.
They're just
Doesn't even
telling
work.
you exactly what it is. Now, the young, skinny, wiry fellows,
Oh,
Thomas
that was like
would be perfect for
$600,
this, right?
Wow,
Yep.
that's really good.
Under
A
18.
week?
Can you ride?
In 1850, 900.
No.
So
No.
1,000.
And probably you're not willing to do this. No. No. It was
I wanna be a
dangerous.
pony
They
rider.
did have volunteers. They did hire riders. But they did not want, usually if you're over 18, you might have maybe responsibilities with family. You might already be married and things like that. So they just wanted people that were kind of expendable.
Oh.
Nobody would miss them. Because, you know, it's dangerous, and you know what happened to the Donners, right?
It's like a risk reward.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this was excellent pay. Excellent pay.
I looked it up.
$25 per
It was
week.
like
It was 979, almost $1,000.
I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good pay. Like the Lowell girls that are working in those factories, they're probably making about $5 a week.
How much was that?
So,
196.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I think this is our last slide.
But I did work 6 days per week. I worked 2
Wow.
All right. So this westward expansion and this renewed controversy of slavery, we have a new political party that kind of jumps up. It kind of replaces the Whigs.
Dang, that part.
I know that party is just sad.
They keep getting replaced.
Free soil, free speech, free labor, free men. They're the Free Soil Party, and obviously they are anti-slavery. That is their number one thing, anti-slavery. They were, some northern Democrats will join this party because the big Democrat Party is dominated by southern slave-holding interests. The Democrat Party in the 1850s becomes the party of slavery and white supremacy, and they're going to be the party of slavery until after the Civil War, and of white supremacy well into the 1900s, about mid-1930s. So the Democrats that leave the Democrat Party and join the Free Soil Party, they're called the Barn Burners. And everybody in the Free Soil Party obviously are abolitionists or anti-slavery supporters. The Free Soilers. Alright, I think that is it. Here we go. Alright, we're on a special schedule. I can never remember the Friday schedule. Alright, we go to lunch at 12:10. So that is 39 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and submit it and I'll.
Yeah, that was really bad. I'm still in
Is it that like England kind of?
I'm awaiting approval.
That's what it is.
Alright, baby, you're good.
Thank you.
I mean, look
Let's
at
see
that.
how long it takes to read.
It's like frying your brain cells.
Let's see how long
Is
it
that, is it considered an
Comes
energy
back.
drink? Or
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What's the name? What's the brand?
Gorilla Mind.
Oh.
I don't know what that means.
Give a gorilla
It's
mind.
sour watermelon candy.
Okay.
So.
Mine.
Maybe because gorillas are energetic.
He tries all of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Never know. You never find logic in there. Like,
I mean, they're beefy.
Yeah.
I would not even think it was a.
Maybe that's what, yeah.
They're what? What did you say they were?
Okay.
Like
If you would, let's get back to our
You're thinking it in a
DBQ. We're
weird
gonna
way.
do the
I'm not.
last of
Yeah,
the
okay,
sandwich
that's your
today.
fault.
That's a little gross of you.
Excuse me.
How dare you
I'm
have
just-
that mindset in a school building?
I am thinking
How dare
about
you bring that in?
Ow.
How dare you?
drink like
Yeah, but you're not like.
Yeah, I was on my hair. I was making sure my hair was fine. But
It's not like you really.
Yes.
Hold on.
no, that's literally me. I'm just like, just gotta make sure,
Alright, fight the Civil War next week, as y'all can tell.
make sure every little girl.
I'm ready to do that.
We gotta be halfway through the course by fall break, and we are on track,
Somehow be
so that is good. At least 3, and I would say maybe all the way up to 5 sentences. Alright? Do you have that rubric that I gave you yesterday? I found one on the floor over in this general area, so if you don't have it, this might be you.
Would we just talk about what it was before all this development?
Yes.
See, okay, yeah, I did not do good on a text conversation with the really cute. I kind of found out.
What do you mean about my hair being straight?
Look at this
What
here.
does that say about me?
No.
It just speaks your character.
What does that mean?
You It's right here.
Contextualization is the
Okay,
second box on the rubric. Let's take a look at it real quick. Describes a broader historical context relevant to the prompt. On the point, the response must relate to the topic of the prompt in broader historical events, development processes that occur before, during, or continue after the time frame of the question. This point is not awarded for merely a phrase or reference. That's why we have to do this. 3 to 5 sentences. Clearly link your contextualization to the topic of the essay. All right. There's several different ways to get the contextualization points. There's always several ways to earn any of these points. Okay? What I think is a lot of time an easy kind of rule of thumb to try first to earn the point of contextualization is to look at the dates of the prompt, back it up maybe 20 years or so, and discuss maybe what's going on in the United States that might have led to this thing they're asking about. Okay? So, looking at the dates, 1800, 1865. So if we back it up about 20 years, we're looking at about 1870.
1870.
So it is.
1870?
Is that?
Oh, 1780.
Okay.
1780. 1780.
Oh.
1780.
So we're gonna look around there.
That is right
Yeah,
after.
so we're still, we're like after Declaration of Independence,
Yeah.
still fighting the
Before
war.
the Constitutional Convention.
Yeah, and still, we don't even have President Washington yet. So that might be a little early, so let's think about backing it up a little bit and think about what maybe is the spark to this whole commercial development that they want us to discuss anyway.
Industrial Revolution and...
All right? Okay, so I hear some good things here. I heard market revolution,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
and I heard War of 1812.
Embargo Act.
I like that, wherever that came from. Thank you. Embargo Act.
What about Samuel
Slater.
Slater?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so, I like all these answers. Y'all are doing so well here. So, I like this idea of this and this, which leads to this. Okay? Because the market revolution is really this commercial development. Those are kind of the same thing. Those are synonymous.
Did you also mention the Industrial Revolution?
I know.
Yeah, with Samuel Slater.
Yep,
What were you doing
yep,
there?
perfect.
Were you using
This is so annoying. Like, you have to raise your hand and stop.
Okay, so, tell me more about the Embargo Act.
Stop trading
No
with
trade.
Stop trade because,
of impressment or British impressment.
stop trade because the Brits and who else?
France.
And French, attacking our ships because they were both sore at us for really not picking a side. But you don't necessarily have to go into the weeds with that. But we do this, we do the Embargo Act to protect American sailors and American property. During the War of 1812, obviously we're not trading with Britain at all. And because we were not trading with the Embargo Act prior to this, and now we're at war with Great Britain in the War of 1812 and the trade has stopped there, period, what does America have to do?
Make their own goods.
Make
Develop their.
Yeah, we,
Okay, so that's pretty,
yeah.
I mean, that's
Pretty
pretty
good.
right on the nose setting this up, right? Which is what contextualization is all about. Okay? So, if I were to start this essay, I would start with contextualization and then lead into my thesis at the end of that opening paragraph. And my first sentence would probably be something like, when in the late 1790s, the United States was a new country and was trying to trade internationally to grow and prosper. I don't know, I'm just kind of making things up on the fly. That sounds terrible. Let me start over. Let's see, in the late 1700s, the new country of the United States was trying to grow and prosper through international trade. However, because of conflicts in Europe, England and France were both continually attacking American trade ships, which will lead to, do we know what president did this?
Jefferson.
Oh, y'all are so good. Which led to President Thomas Jefferson passing the Embargo Act, which will outlaw trade with France and Great Britain to protect American sailors and merchandise. In 1812, we will declare war on Great Britain, which will further stop international trade. And because Americans still needed resources, products, finished goods, they begin developing it on their own. This leads to the market revolution, brought to us by Samuel Slater. But don't try to fit in as much vocab as you can within this limit. Okay? Because this is one point. And we want to get this one point, but we don't want to spend 30 minutes on this one point, right? So figure out what you're going to say, what's the best way to get this point, and the best way to get this point is usually looking at that prompt, backing it up a bit, and say, well, what got us here? And what got us here is we had to start industry here on our own because we couldn't trade. Because of this and because of this. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, could you stop my timer, please?
Yes, ma'am. So, I tell you what, let's take about 5 minutes, yeah? And let's see if we can put those ideas into our little 3 to 5 sentence, yeah? All right. So take some of these ideas, or if you have your own ideas about contextualization, run with that. And but let's take about 5 minutes and see what we can come up with for contextualization.
yeah, I switched to.
I didn't realize that we were actually.
Yeah, and just find an empty spot anywhere. We're not writing the whole essay, but we are going to write a couple of parts, okay? And this is one of the parts.
Can I staple another paper?
Sure, and if you'd rather do it on a Google Doc, we're all getting little participation grades for this, okay? So it's not something that you'll have to physically turn into.
What's the Embargo Act? Embargo Act? Stop. Oh, wait, oh.
No, the year.
Oh, 1807.
1807.
In the late 1700s.
Yeah, that's
In the late 1700s.
that's exactly what
Yeah.
Or your old ideas? I kind of missed the first part. How we got into ideas. Oh, it's in your room.
I don't know if I'll be.
Okay.
Womp, womp, womp. Okay.
I forgot to email.
Did you finish?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay. I don't know how to word the market
I
revolution
think I
part.
wrote.
I'm also gonna read that after I'm done, or you're done. I'm done. See, I can read yours too.
Necessary. How do you spell?
Okay.
I can't.
Why?
It's on the 22nd, Friday.
So, what's Friday?
Are you saying something, Sia?
And also my
We can do the Calvert one.
Are you guys doing Central? Is it Central?
Yeah,
Where
well,
do you sign up for that?
she sends emails. You have to check it. But we have the sleepover. Or we can always move it, because,
Y'all, I was just saying, it's better to get the hours like now.
yeah, like,
Because springtime last year, there was almost no volunteer opportunities.
I
So
can't go anyway, because I have to work.
Okay, that's fine.
are you going, Sid?
Yeah, I signed up for first shift. Because I don't.
You're not on here. I don't see you.
What? I just did it.
Do we have to email her, or can we just sign up?
No, you just signed up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I think you have to get off of it first.
Oh. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, just
See, do you see me now?
Yes,
I see you.
What do I have next I'll make sure. I think I can take you, but I'll verify with my mom to make sure. Thank you. Because you live
If
like.
not, I'll just take a wait. I'll take it.
I don't remember what I have next Friday. I have the.
We have the sleepover, but you can just go like.
It's at 6. It ends at
Class
6:30.
It's 6:30, so it's pretty early.
But it starts at 5. And Central is right there.
It's.
Yeah.
Okay, I will sign up.
How long did she say your classes would be? Oh, wait, no, it says at Kentucky Shores.
Oh, is it at Kentucky Shores? Oh yeah.
I mean, that's still not far, but
It's not far.
see, how long will your tutoring be?
45 minutes.
Okay, yeah, you have time, because you have an hour to drive. From 3 to 45 minutes. You just do whatever you want, honestly.
Okay,
I don't have it.
What are we doing today, do you know? Helping out with the process.
I don't think it's right. That's why I don't want to show it to you and then bad things happen. Can someone read this for me? Yes. Or wait, I'll read it to you. No. So due to British impressment, I don't know how to finish the sentence.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We're set.
Cool. Thank you. Sorry. Oh, customer continue to be. Oh, I've worded that really weirdly, but you know.
Here, this with this long attention for more, because America
Need to be able.
yeah, that makes sense. Need to be able to manufacture goods as an independent country.
This it's supposed to say which.
Which
This or
resulted in the
which.
market revolution where Americans
And then began to. I was gonna
industrialize
industrialize.
How we doing?
their markets.
Okay. I don't know. I'm gonna say. I like the industrialize. Like that word is what I was trying to say. To shift to commercial.
I bet you some of y'all have something better than me, but since it's handy for me to project mine, I will do that. Let me fix this typo.
And I'll erase the whole word. This is my whole first paragraph,
Including your pieces.
including the thesis. Thesis is the last sentence.
Wait, you have work Friday, not that Friday. How are you even gonna do this?
Because it ends 7:30.
Your work? Oh, okay, yeah. And this ends at 6:30, so.
Yeah, I figured I'd just be a little late.
That's
Can you
okay.
read mine?
I'm like, remember last time I was like at 8 when I got there?
Well, read mine. I don't know if it's good enough.
With all that experience, you know.
Yeah, I've been doing this a while.
I couldn't vote. Actually,
That's
my
good.
bad.
I mean, I connected it somehow this time, but yours is just more in depth.
I think if I actually had to count the sentences, I got one,
Proposed, not provided.
three, I got four sentences for contextualization. Some of them are rather long, but 4 sentences for contextualization. My last sentence, I think, led into what is going to be my
The
thesis.
Embargo Act, stop U.S. trade with all countries. You put those countries.
I would like,
Is it all European
particularly
countries or
those
just
of
all
y'all
trade?
that might have Google
So I
Doc
need to change
yours, if you would like to share it, that would be awesome. And we can look at it. Did y'all type yours out? Yeah, go ahead and share it with me.
Yes.
And thank you, gentlemen, because the more we see,
Can I have my
the
pencil?
better we'll all get. All right, thank you. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna. All right, they have their thesis statement first, and we'll just add it. We'll start here, and then we'll add it to the end.
Yeah, we added it to the end.
Oh, you did already? Okay. All right. In the late 18th century, ooh, I like that. Showing off your, I can do the centuries part. That's actually kind of nice. Yeah. So the late 18th century, this means the late 1700s. In the late 18th century, the newly formed nation, the U.S., sought to develop trade on an international scale. Yours is much better than mine. In the beginning of the 19th century, the rising violence in the European continent led to the impressment of American sailors. Good use of vocabulary there by British and French naval forces. Good use of specific things, because you have to have specific things in the context. Okay, because of the president's desire for neutrality. I would prefer you name them, because y'all know who it is. Yeah. So because of President Washington's desire for neutrality. See, this is so good. This led to the Embargo Act and eventually to the War of 1812, in which the U.S. and Great Britain engaged violently with each other. The War of 1812 led to no concessions of either U.S. or Great Britain, but led to an increased American necessity for industrial independence. I like this. Because this is what we have. We have to have this to get to that, right? Another APUSH teacher that goes to all, he grades in the summer as well. He has developed what he calls the 411. You got 4 sentences of contextualization. Set the stage. 1 sentence as a transition, and then 1 sentence as a thesis. And that's your intro paragraph. Sometimes you need 2 sentences as a thesis, but that's okay. But I think whenever you end here, necessity for industrial independence. And then probably just to make a smoother transition into the thesis, I might start that with this commercial development change. Meaning, you know, I just talked about that, so da-da-da-da. Make sense? Yeah. Anybody else want to share? After seeing theirs.
I don't think mine's as good.
I know, it's okay though. The more we see, the better we get at it, because you're helping your classmates and your classmates appreciate it. And they'll be brave too, eventually. And I think a lot of us did not do it on a Google Doc, so they can't
Mine's
share.
on, oh no, mine's on.
Oh, yours on paper, can I read it? Okay. Or you can read it, go ahead and read it.
In the late 1700s, the colonies
were experiencing attacks by the British and French on their trade ships. This led to the Embargo Act put in place by President Jefferson, which restricted trade. It also caused the War of 1812, which would limit trade altogether. This would lead to a market revolution being brought to the U.S. from Great Britain by Samuel Slater, and the U.S. would start producing their own goods. And then I'll go to it.
But then that leads right into the thesis.
Yes.
No, absolutely, that gets the point. It's just as good. Because Isaiah's got the point, and you got the point. He didn't get two. He just got the 1 point, right? And you got the 1 point, so it's good. Anybody else? All right, how we doing with time? 11 minutes. Okay, so let's do the next part. All right, let's, I bet you all of us are going to be using document number 6.
Yep.
Has anybody decided that you're not going to use document 6? I think that document's pretty straightforward, we understand it, and it supports factory work, which I think a lot of folks are, that's in your thesis, or at least that's part of maybe what you're talking about is working in factories. So document 6, let me find my document pack. All right. She's a woman, she's happy, she's gaining independence, she's making money, it's all good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And plus she's developing, all right? She's going to lecture, school, she has library, so it's all good stuff. So what I would like to think about now is, in our essay, to get the point of using a document and supporting our thesis with the document, and then hip, because we want to get the hip point too, we're going to compose a couple of sentences with this document, okay? So think about how you're using it, how it's answering your question. Obviously, I am going to talk about people not working at home anymore and working in the factories, right? That's what I'm doing. And obviously, it's kind of a big deal for women leaving the home and working in the factories. So, I'm going to compose one sentence. And I am going to start with the author's name. Whenever you use a document in your essay, that is how you start it. You start with the author's name. So, I would literally write Josephine Baker, and then you want a word, hopefully, besides said or wrote. You want a word that can kind of capture the tone intent.
Like
You know what I'm
express.
saying? Yeah. I think that might be a little too neutral. Like here, I think a good word here would be Josephine Baker testified.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand the difference between said and testified?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a stronger word, and that little bit of a stronger word means a lot. Okay? Now, if you cannot think of that word within 30 seconds, whenever you're actually doing a test, states is fine. You know, don't waste time thinking of that perfect word. But hopefully, after you read it and you look at it, you're like, ooh, testified. And that's the word you use, right?
Get it.
I just want to look at them.
Okay,
They're not
so
doing well.
Josephine Baker testifies that
These are
working in a mill is good for women. Because they are earning money, independence, and receiving other lessons through the libraries and lectures. So, I said that women are working in the factories, right, which answers the question here. She says it's good for women working in the factories because of this. Okay? Now I have a second sentence for hip. You should only spend no more than 2 sentences per document. Okay? One to how it answers the question, how it supports your thesis, and the second one is the hip.
So first sentence that, and the second sentence that.
Yeah. The first sentence is like a summary of how it answers the question.
Okay.
Summary, then hit. Summary, then hit. All right, y'all take a couple of minutes and see if we can compose a decent hit here. Or 6. I'm sorry? Intended audience? Are you asked to put the I in the yes? Purpose, point of view.
Can you say for the audience that she was writing for women as a woman as an example?
I would say just people in general.
What are
If
you
you
putting?
read-
What
when you
are you
ask-
putting for the? What letter do you put? What do you?
I don't know yet. But I would just say people in
Remember where you
general.
look for the hip? Where do you look for the hip?
Title.
This is, you can do that with this.
What's the H again?
H,
Can you
historical.
explain point of view again?
Context?
Like what?
Point of view is, the person is saying this because, fill in the blank. Like, for instance, and this is a simple one. Frederick Douglass is a very vocal abolitionist because he lived through the hell of slavery,
Okay.
right? So, Ms. Baker
Could you?
is writing a good review of factory life because,
I was gonna say maybe like people are saying, well, if you hate it, why are you still working it? Because that's like, if you say
Yeah,
there is
because
so many
that's,
objections.
she's in the beginning she's
Why
like,
would
oh,
you
it's
work
like
in
it's
the
good, but in the end she's saying it's good.
in the source, where is this source coming from?
Magazine or
About
you mean
written by
Yeah. Low Offering, which is a magazine featuring writing by the factory girl. Who do you suppose publishes that magazine?
like who owns factories?
The yeah.
Would they publish something that said, factory life is awful?
Yeah.
We work 12 hours a day, and then we only get
For a
paid.
purpose, can you put to how do you say it in English?
What is Baker?
Not invite, but
Persuade.
I guess when new workers to the factory, small
Yes.
workers.
Yes,
It will be a purpose.
persuade or recruit might be
That's
a
the
better
word,
word.
yes, that's the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
We were gonna do historical context.
Okay.
About just including goes.
Mhm.
I can't really think of how to transition. Like Baker.
Well, and I'm not sure that would work because you can't use really anything. Like, it says Lowell here. If nothing said Lowell,
Yeah, then it'd be.
then it would be historical context because that's something you knew and you just pulled out. But now that it says Lowell here, it wouldn't get credit.
Historical
But,
context. Intended audience. POV. And then what's that one said?
Point of view.
Point of view.
Wait, you are, oh,
What's the
purpose?
other P? Purpose.
So for the audience, can we say that they are writing to the simple workers? So they are saying as much good stuff as possible to
Recruit. Yeah.
that will work as audience, right? Okay.
Couldn't that work as purpose as well?
Yeah, I'm putting that as purpose.
Oh, I thought you said intended audience.
Yeah, but you can like when
Yeah, it works for
have you,
both.
Yeah, that's
if
what I was
you will,
asking.
if you will like say beginning sentence different, she's writing to simple workers, so she's writing blah 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 only positive. But and I put like, you know, I'm putting like
in a minute.
to make profits.
I was really getting into this.
Alright, we are getting close to time, and that is fine. Don't forget, manifest destiny maps and explanations. I want that Monday. Don't get behind on the vocab cards. Get this week's done. Okay, because you got more next week. And we'll do about the last 10 minutes on this when we get back that day.
I'm afraid most likely nothing will happen. Because, oh, you done?
I'm afraid
Yeah. For what? Art?
We're going on an art
Okay,
trip.
have a good weekend.
Oh, and MA too?
I think so. I think it's for NHS. I really hope so.
I'm afraid.
I need to go. Where's Selena? Oh, thanks. Excuse me, excuse me. You're covered. You know what I mean? Like.
How do you what?
Yeah.
Bye, Miss Sarah. Have a good week.
Maybe it's just for regular art. I don't know.
What is?
I don't have the